Hello, my name is Jonathan Tripp, host of your show today. I am really glad to see everybody here, and I'm really glad to have our guest, Civilla Morgan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well,
How are you doing this morning?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
That's great. And we every day, we kind of do like our pre-show event, right? And I was kind of just thinking about, like you have a very calming, a very soothing personality, and your voice is one of those, and I was just like, you know what, I think this is the way to kind of cruise right into the weekend, at least for the show. And so I'm actually really glad to have you on, but it's actually more than that, because I really like our topic. I really like this topic. And actually you picked the topic. You came up, it was like growing a super niche community. You were just like, John, this is something I'd really like to talk about. And so I wanted to give you a chance, but I don't think that everybody knows you yet. So I wanted to ask, would you just kind of just quickly tell us about maybe who you are and some of the things that you do? Because I think a lot of people would really like to connect with you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again so much for having me, Jonathan. I appreciate it. This is a really big deal for me, so thank you so much. My name, where do I start? My name.
Okay. Yeah. What's your name?
My name is Civilla Morgan, Civilla M. Morgan, but we won't tell you what the M stands for. And
Okay.
But I still use it. I don't know why. I have a background in financial services. I spent 11 years at one firm, and I'll mention the firm name. There's nothing bad about it. I worked at Charles Schwab for 11 years. Everything from customer service all the way up to stockbroker, dealing with people's millions of dollars. And unfortunately, there was a layoff in 2004. This is going to date me a little bit, but after the layoff, I decided not to go back into financial services, went into healthcare. Unfortunately, after about 8 years in healthcare, I wasn't getting anywhere. But there was always something on my heart for women who are childless not by choice, because I'm a woman who is childless not by choice. And it was always weighing on me that I needed to be doing more and speaking up more for this segment of society around the world, not just in my local area, but worldwide. I knew that there were women who were suffering in silence, because if they spoke up about how they felt, they would come off as maybe being haters or misunderstood or crazy or whatever. So I decided, I really felt this tug on my heart to do it, and I was scared, because I was used to my regular paycheck. From the time I was 14 years old, I was not afraid of work. And in fact, I just got my bachelor's in 2012 and my master's in 2015 while working full time, sometimes overtime. So I'm not afraid of work. And so to have this tug on my heart to just walk away from corporate America was really, really hard. But I did it in November of 2014. I quit my job and started living off my savings and my 401k and all of that stuff. A lot of people know that story. A lot of people have done it themselves because they felt tugged and pulled to do this. And so that's where I've been since. Now I'm building the community, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm building this community, this niche community for and about women who are childless not by choice. I want to start something for men as well, because I have done a couple of blabs where I've talked to men who've hurt and been hurting about the childlessness issue. And so I'd love to start a group, but I need at least one person to say, hey, I'm a man, childless not by choice, and I want to start this group. And so at any rate, I have a couple of groups on Facebook, and I don't want to jump ahead, but I have a couple of groups on Facebook that I've started. And I've got websites, two of them. I told you about one of them, Jonathan, childlessnotbychoice.net. And that's where I am now. I'm up to the present now with that story.
And I think, pardon me, I was listening and hearing your story, and actually one of the things I actually love about your story is that every time I hear it, I get to hear another aspect of it, another nuance in it. Yeah. In this last one, it's just I didn't realize you actually had just made the decision to say, I'm not going to go back and do the things I used to do. I'm going to do something different, even at the cost of it's a financial cost. Oh, yeah. It's a little bit of a career and time cost as well. But I look at money as more of a resource. Oh. So it's not like, it's costing me all this money, as much as like, okay, now I have to use this resource in order to do it.
Hmm.
Um, and the other thing was is that your desire to start another type of the child that's not by choice is somewhat of a broad topic. There's lots of reasons why. Some are more apparent than others. But the one I didn't even think of, so this is kind of like a super niche within a super niche, is where you're saying, look, I'd be willing, and you have an interest in starting another nuance within this of men that are childless not by choice, and I think that you really bring something. Not only, I mean, if I came in with a big personality and we're just really you feel a little bit more forceful, you have a wonderful personality, I think, to address this personal aspect of this kind of community. And I wanted to really address that and just talk with you about that because um, when you're doing a super niche community, this is not it's not a big broad category, but at the same time, though, I think it does affect a lot of people, and I don't. And this is one of the aspects that are a little different. You didn't start this community with a business in mind. This was not a business decision. This was a care decision.
Exactly.
And so I think you start out with something that some people actually don't have, which is a deep-seated passion for it. And would you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. I I would, well, the healthcare aspect is I worked at two specialty pharmacies in the course of those 8 years that I mentioned. And at the second pharmacy where I spent 6 years, specialty pharmacies, for those who don't know, are the pharmacies that ship specialty medications you can't walk into Walgreens or CVS and get
Mm-hmm.
over the counter. They have to be shipped. Some of them have to be, um, what's the word that I'm looking for? The pharmacist has to put them together. I can't remember the word right now. Compounded.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
so these are specialty drugs that they're for people who have chronic diseases, terminal diseases, and infertility. And at
Mm-hmm.
one point in my journey at that particular pharmacy, I sat near the infertility department. Sometimes when they didn't have enough people on staff, my department got the calls. And so I would get the calls from women. A lot of them were in their 30s and 40s doing the IVF cycle, trying to get pregnant. And a lot of times I would hear other women say, well, I don't even know why she's bothering. She's in her 40s, just forget about it. And these were typically women who already had children. And I just could never understand how, especially women, couldn't put the shoe on the other foot and just realize that women, for the most part, 99.99% of us were built to nurture. And a good percentage of us wanted children or want children and expect to have children. And when it doesn't happen, we can go into a spiral. And I just couldn't understand how others couldn't figure this out and just see, just put yourself in somebody else's shoes for a minute. And I would just hear the little conversations, and sometimes I would push back, but I had to choose my battles. I didn't become the crazy infertility lady. But it just kept weighing on me, and I just like, there's nothing out there. There's nobody talking about this. And I've come to realize that there are little segments and groups talking about it around the world. I've been in contact with a woman from New Zealand, actually, looking forward to speaking to her more. But I just felt like around me, there was nobody talking. And just to be a little transparent, I, as I said it earlier, never had kids. I wanted kids so badly. It was not even funny. And fortunately for me, I have three nephews. They're grown, but they've been in my life since they were babies. I've changed Pampers, runny noses, throw up, taken them to games. I've done everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thankful that I had that little slice of taking care of people from the time they were born until now. They're in their 20s, and they still like me.
Right.
I mean, I love
Right.
the relationship I have with them now, and I'm thankful for it because I believe it's because I invested in them. And that's something out there for women who are childless, not by choice, who have nieces and nephews. It's not that you want to invest because you want something out of it, but there's nothing like being able to be there for your siblings.
Mm-hmm.
They need a week off or a weekend or whatever, taking care of the kids. Now, if you can't do it, you just can't do it. Don't force, don't try. If you're not there, just don't do it. But if you can, I would say build a relationship with your nieces and nephews if you possibly can. But just to be a little transparent, I I had issues with fibroids for many, many years, from my late 20s, and I had 4 myomectomies. Myomectomies are surgeries where they remove fibroids. They go in and remove them. I had 4 of them. One of the
Mm,
4 was a robot. So the robot went in and tried to get to the fibroids. After 4 hours, they they took me back out. And when I came
mm,
out of surgery, they said we didn't even get to the fibroids. You had so much scar tissue over all of your organs that we never did get to the fibroids. And about a year after that, I decided I couldn't take it anymore, and I had a hysterectomy. That was
mm,
December of 2011. So just my backstory from a medical point of view. And I was okay.
mm.
I had a great
Yeah.
support system. My parents, my siblings, my nephews, they were there for me, but they couldn't possibly know what I was dealing with mentally and emotionally. And I had to end up going to see a shrink because I
Yeah.
thought I was losing my mind. I was crying every day, all day. I woke up crying. I went to bed crying. I went to work crying. I came home crying. I was crying, crying, crying. So I
Yeah.
went to see a shrink, and I went to see my OBGYN doctor to make sure I was okay hormonally and mentally. And I always
Right.
tell people about this. You have to take care of yourself, ladies. Don't pretend everything is okay if it's not. Whatever you've been through, deal with it. And that's what I did. And so, to be honest, that's where the heart issue comes from. I've
Mhm.
dealt with it. I can't be the only woman going through it. There's got to be other women, and there's got to be something we can do about it.
You bring up several really good points with this, and as a host, I'll be honest with you, I'm having a hard time going like, where do we want to take this? Because you bring up so many really good points, and I think overall, I want to say this is that you started this with obviously with something extremely personal, but where you didn't let it stay there, and I think that was the thing that I really want to say in and just, hey, you took it right from that thing that was super personal and super it was, you felt a passion. You also saw a need. That was the other thing I heard in there. You saw a need that that this was happening to certain people. You had these certain women were having this experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you took it from that to saying, look, we're gonna do something. We're gonna make a difference. And so what I wanted to say is, like, I think that was probably, in everything that I've experienced, is when you start a community, if it's like a super personal one, social media marketing's one thing,
Right.
but Civilla, what you're talking about is a different
It
thing.
is.
And you start it, it's super personal. You can relate. I don't think I could start a group like this. I couldn't do that. Not well, right?
Right.
And so you do this. And so I really wanted to talk to you about how when you started this group, and I don't want to call it a support group.
No.
I don't think it's not like that, because this is not like you're recovering from something. You guys all share a life experience or something that you're going through right now.
Right now.
And it's not like something and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not something you don't feel like you're afflicted with this. It's part of who you are.
Right.
It's part of, it's part of who Civilla is. And so when I talk to you, this is part of your story, because that's who you are. It's not like a cancer. It's not like a disease.
Mm-hmm.
This is a part of who you are, even as painful as it is. And this is the other part of this, going like, Civilla, you've really taken pains to take care of yourself and to go that extra mile. And now I think you can stand up as a leader and say, look, let's have a community, because you've gone through those experiences.
Yes.
Morning,
I
Civilla.
want to. Morning, Leland. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just wanted to commend you before you answered that, because I saw you come out here a month or two ago as a new blabber, and it's so awesome to see you here in the interviewee seat, because it shows your passion for what you're doing for the people you are working with is taking a front seat to everything else, and that you are able to continue to broadcast your message out here. I think it's awesome. I do want to just let you into the fact that my life has contained a lot of similar situations that you're dealing with right now. My first wife had a severe case of endometriosis, so I know what you speak of when you talk of fibroids and things of that nature. My oldest daughter spent 6 years trying to have a child and didn't succeed in that until recently. She's now 32, going on 35. I'm sorry, in the next year coming up in May. On the 1st, and she has a 2-year-old daughter that will be 3 in August. So it was a blessing to us to have that, and it's our youngest grandchild right now. But it was nice to see our oldest daughter finally managing to have a child. So the struggle that we had to witness with her and see all of the just severity of how it affected her, and you know, everyone else around her, all of her friends and her family and her sister and her brother were all having kids, and yet she couldn't do it. And she felt like, you know, she put her in this position of, there's a word there I want to use, that she was almost inept, that she wasn't capable. She couldn't do it. It was something that God wasn't going to let her do or whatever. And it's a very difficult position to be in. So kudos on being able to work with those folks and be there for them, because it's not really, like Jonathan said, it's not really support, but it is in another sense, because people do need that encouragement that even though you can't have kids, it's okay. But nobody says you have to have kids. And I know people have decided otherwise, to not have children also. So it goes both ways. But go ahead. I'm just going to kind of sit here and listen for a bit, and then I'll interject when possible. I've got a little bit of knowledge on this topic.
Thanks, Leland.
So Civilla, you know, we've talked about a little bit of your backstory of some of the process that took you to get here, and just to kind of really sum it up, it just comes out of I'll just use the word adversity, whether it was economic or personal. But you've come to this point in your journey, in your life, where now you realize you see a need and you've stepped up. And you didn't just do this last month, but you've started a community. And would you just quickly tell us about it? Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk to you about the actual how you started it, and how you're forming this group. And I want to get into a little bit more of the how-to side of the group. But so tell us a little bit more about this community that you're developing, and so we can kind of be familiar with that.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I have a closed group and a private group. I started out with the private group, trying to protect the women that are in the groups. But as most of you know, for Facebook, the private group can't be searched for. And I kept being advised that nobody's going to know you exist if they can't search for you. And the only people that are going to know about the private group are the people that you tell. And not every woman that's in the group is going to tell somebody else, because it's a tough subject to broach. And you just have to be careful how you broach it with other women. Even though you know they may be going through this, you still have to be careful, because it's a touchy subject. So I created a closed group, so it can be searched for. It's called Childless Not by Choice on Facebook. Both groups are still small, and I see groups blow up sometimes. Like overnight, it seems like they blow up to 200-300 people, and I'm like, why are my groups so small? I'm trying not to hang on to the crutch of it's the subject matter, and continually just working. I know it's going to be extra work. I know because of the subject matter, it's going to be extra work from the beginning anyway. I know this. So I'm just pushing to get the groups, get people into the groups, get people to recognize the groups. I have a third group. It's called, because I'm a podcaster as well, I have about 30 episodes in my podcast. 21st Century Hannah is the name of the podcast. And I have a third group called Podcaster for Childless Not by Choice Community. That group is set up for people who want to join. You may have children. You may not be the ideal client avatar, which is something I wanted to talk about briefly. You may not be a childless not by choice person, but you may want to be supportive. You may want to read some of the posts that I post, not necessarily what the women in the groups are posting, because as I said, these groups are, especially the private one, just for those people. But if I want to post, this is what's coming up, and you want to know, you want to support, Podcaster for the Childless Not by Choice community is that group. And if you can't find it, of course, just inbox me or email me at Civilla@CivillaMorgan.com for details. But my ICA, my ideal client avatar, and this can really maybe upset some people, it's for the woman who never had children and probably will never have children because again, I have that
Okay.
experience. That's my experience. I mean, I'm happy. Like for Leland's daughter, I'm happy that she finally had a baby. I'm so excited. And people have a tough time understanding that I can be that excited for somebody else. But that's part of the healing process. Is that you have to be happy because everybody's on their own journey, on their own path, and you cannot strive with other people. You should be happy for other people when something good happens to them. That's the bottom line. So I'm always happy when he finally has that baby. Finally
Mm.
has, finally has their dream come true. What I call getting the prize at the end of the road. But unfortunately, there are many of us who will never have that child. And so, yes, I know about the womb transplants that are going on right now. I don't know how many of us can do that or afford it or whatever.
Insane.
But yeah, can you believe it? But
Modern technology, I
a
guess.
modern technology, you gotta love it. And hey, I think if you're willing to take the risk and whatever it is, if you can swing it, I am always there for anybody who's trying and still trying to have that child. I mean, you're going to have to figure out what you're diminishing, if you can use that term for wanting to have a baby, what your diminishing returns are. How much money are you willing to spend to have that baby? And then people might be upset about this too, going to adoption, because I did try adoption on 2 occasions. It didn't work out. Neither time did it work out. And again, I believe in both cases, it may be, I don't know if things have changed now, but I was single. I am single. And I think agencies like to adopt out to couples. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I don't know if that was a part of it. I never found out. I never did get to adopt. So I don't have the children. I had the hysterectomy. I can't adopt. And I can't be the only one. There's no way I'm the only one on this planet of 7 billion people who are going through this. And I know that it's taken me time. I'm not perfect. Yes, I do have a soft spoken voice. I'm easy to get along with. I love people overall. I believe in what Martin Luther King said. Look at people for the content of their character, not the color of their skin or any of that craziness.
Mm.
I want to see what's on the inside of you before, I make my decision on who you are. And I'll even give you a second chance. But like some of my friends will say about me, don't get it twisted.
Civilla, I don't
I
want
will
anyone
see.
to be I don't want anybody to be confused with the fact that we also have a Facebook group, and I didn't realize you were going to mention yours before I posted ours. So
Okay.
you mentioned you have a private, and is there a closed group also that's separate from that?
Right, 2 groups. The private group, which if you want in, you just tell me you want in. It's for women
Okay.
only.
Yeah,
And
you
Yeah.
did.
then, so I don't mention the name of that one.
Yeah, and you
And then
can't
the,
search for that,
No.
right?
you
That's
can't
the
search for
secret.
it. That's the
In
secret.
Facebook, they call those the secret groups
Hmm.
because they're just you just can't find them. They're
Yeah.
just non-existent as far as the searches. The other ones are the private group. Blabnation has a private group where you can find it, but you can't get in.
Yeah, it's a closed group.
Well, mine is private.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's 4 ways actually you can do it.
Oh,
Do you have a link to the private
the
group or the
closed.
closed group, not the secret one? But is that something you want to
Closed group.
share that I can
Oh,
put
yeah.
in here? If you put it in
Okay.
once, I'll continue to share it after the fact. So
Okay.
I'll grab a capture of it.
Let
We
me
do have
grab it.
one question from Claudia coming in that we can answer, but I didn't want people to get
Right.
when you mentioned Facebook group
Right.
and they see a link to our group that's the group. I didn't want that to be an issue.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I'm looking for it right now. I'll get you the
Yeah.
link.
Okay. And I just have a quick question myself with regards to, because my second wife, and I've been married, I'm on my 3rd marriage, and I have, thanks to that, 6 wonderful children. So
Awesome.
2 from my first marriage, 1 from my second, which was after she had a few children herself. But when my youngest son was born, there were severe complications, and my second wife nearly died after the birth. She went through a very large hemorrhaging issue and a near bleed out, which caused her to have hysterectomy. Do you experience a lot of these women also who have had medical complications after having children that may have wanted to have more children? That, maybe their first child, it was such a complicated issue in birth, and the doctors recommended that no, you really shouldn't have any more children. Are those women also coming to you or coming forward and finding that you're somewhat there for them also, or have you not really dealt with too many women like that?
I have met women, and all of the events that I attend, I meet women, and let me mention this. I know I kind of touched on it earlier, but any group setting that you are in, there's going to be one or two women in there who wanted but could not have children. And that's something we have to remember. And I'm not trying to get people to walk on eggshells because we live in a very PC society. And I understand that, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to
Mm.
get people to just be aware that there's a whole group of people out there who wanted but could not have children. And so I just really, I want to mention that first. And then also, this kind of leads back to the ideal client avatar. I have no problem talking to people, to women, about what they've been through. I'm always there for you no matter what, but I've got to stick to, as far as the groups and this quote unquote support, I've got to stick with my ICA, my ideal client avatar, which is the woman who wanted but could not have children. But of course, if you come and talk to me about everything that you've been through,
I
the other
understand
day,
that. Yeah.
this woman approached me and she said, she, I showed her my card. I told her what I was doing, and it's just, this is awesome. This is great. I have a friend that you might want to talk to. And she said, my friend had this. She had a tough time having kids, really difficult time, and I could hear it coming. She said, "Oh my gosh, she just went through such difficulty, but she ended up having triplets." Oh my God,
Mm.
that's
Right.
wonderful.
Wow.
Oh, glad she had triplets.
Right.
And
But
I'm just gonna go ahead. Go ahead.
no, that's
Go
not
ahead.
who. That's not. I'm happy for her. Trust me when I tell you that I'm just so happy that you have three little people that are going to love you to life forever. And I pray for them. I pray for people's children. I do, and but that's not who my ideal client is.
Mhm. Right.
I
And
get
that's actually a good kind of leaping off point as far as I know you say you want to let's talk about that. Like, for you, the whole world of being childless is a very, it's a very specific, a very specific person. But even within that, there's a number of different, obviously different subgroups, and you can divide it up by age, by
Hmm.
demographic, where they are in the world, men, women, because
Hmm.
we brought that up earlier today. And I think it's really important because let's talk about as you're growing your community, because that's really one of the you want to expand your reach and bring in more people, and be able to provide them a place that they can talk about this and a resource for them. Well, the question really is, well, who are you actually going to be trying to connect with? Who is that person? And again, this is a little bit different, but it's still a lot of similarities because you're not necessarily selling a product. You're not getting buyers. But at the
Hmm.
same time, what we're going to do, I would just, we're thinking in terms of connecting with people, and that is the key. And that's what I wanted to ask you about, is saying, so you want to connect with a certain type of person. What steps have you done, or where do you feel that you're stuck with actually trying to reach that specific person?
I think because of the subject matter, I can't just run up to anybody and say, "Hey, I have this group for women who are childless not by choice." I mean, I tell people what I do. I hand out my business card. I tell them about my social media platform. So I have no problem discussing it and telling people, but then they have to decide, because almost everybody I talk to, they have a friend, they have a sister, they have a sister-in-law, they have somebody in their family who is going through this. But will they tell that person about the group? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It just, it's not something that they think about because maybe they're not going through it. It doesn't jive with them because they may not be going through it. But the people who are, for instance, I was on another interview last week, and a woman called in and she told me that she needed my information because when I was talking, she was driving and she needed me to repeat my information. And after the call, she emailed me and she had been calling for the information for her sister.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "I need this information." So there are people who may be close enough to the issue to realize
Yeah.
this person is suffering and this woman, Civilla, can help. And I see she can help. And so to answer the other part of your question, the way I'm helping, and this is still a little over a year old, so I'm still growing by leaps and bounds. But on my websites, there's a subscribe button for a free monthly newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to CivillaMorgan.com or childlessnotbychoice.net, there is a subscribe button. And anyone, you don't have to be childless not by choice to subscribe, but you can
Sure.
get that free monthly newsletter the first day of every month. However, I'm also creating classes. There's something that I want to embed, and the person that actually created my .net site, childlessnotbychoice.net, is actually in the room. His name is Kevin Scullion. So when you look at the childlessnotbychoice.net site, Kevin Scullion created that site, and that's what he does. So if anybody's interested,
Okay.
touch base with him. But
Excellent.
yeah, when you go into the .NET site, what I like about the .NET site, and this is something we've collaborated on for a couple of months now,
Mm-hmm.
and he's 5 hours ahead of me. He's in Scotland, so we're on Skype for hours at a time doing this.
Right.
He's probably tired of me by now. But if you go to the tabs, like Hannah, for instance, if you click on the Hannah tab,
Mm-hmm.
it tells you why I chose the name Hannah, tells you the story of Hannah, but it also gives you the opportunity to join the closed group or the private group by clicking on the tab on the Hannah page. It's that simple. And so I'm creating courses for women to get them from what I call from point A to point B. This is something we're going to have to live with for the rest of our lives, not having the children.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you want to live with it? Do you want to live in depression? Do you want to live in hatefulness, bitterness, or do you want to get from point A to point B and live with it and live your best life ever? And that's my message. Because if I can do it, you can do it. Anybody in the world can do it. And that's what I'm trying to get across. But I'm creating courses even now for that.
One of the things because I had already seen your website after we talked, and I commented, I said, I love the simplicity of it. The color scheme, how easy it is to get from one thing to find things.
Yeah.
It's not like there's like 10,000 little buttons and ads and pop-ups and all this kind of stuff. And I wanted to bring that as an attention point of saying what I feel you've done, and Kevin is I get facilitated.
He created it. Yeah.
Okay, so he's a creator. you're the saying, hey, look,
I'm the thinker and the color scheme and this is what I want, and he just created what I asked.
Well, all of those things are really working together. I think that will really speak out to who your avatar is, who that particular, and I'm going to use the word avatar, although I don't personally use it a lot, but in this case, because we're not talking about a customer, we're not going to, I don't want to say it like in terms of a customer, but this, it's so easy. It's so straightforward. I'm not getting lost in the drop downs and pop-ups and all that stuff like that. And I think that it really speaks volumes to those people that are looking, they're coming to your website as a resource. Mm-hmm. And so I want to say you've done a really good job aligning the visual aspect and the layout aspect with your customer. And that is super crucial.
Thank you.
If you go to a bunch of other websites, they really do. They have these. Sometimes they're flashing. Sometimes they're really high contrasting colors and all this stuff. And that's good for them. Like if I went to a race car, or like some like high-end, something like that, and they had this nice purple pastel colors, and it makes me slow down. It doesn't align. Look, that thing needs to be. I need to see flames shooting off of my monitor. I want to hear like music or loud revving sound. Like I want that. I'm expecting that. And you didn't do that. You were very conscious about it. And so I want to say kudos to you guys, you and Kevin, making that work.
I really like the way that your site uses those percentage dials, which are used a lot now, which are mostly I'm like 88% good at this, or I'm 99% good at this, or we do 100% of this. And you've kind of put a twist on that with the way you used it for statistics. And I love the way it ends with that. Are you capable of living an enjoyable life? 100%. 100%. It's just an awesome touch on that. So great job.
Thank Thank you so much. And Jonathan, as you were saying, I don't know if most of you know this. I'm a big NASCAR fan. I've never been to a race. I'm here in Central Florida, and I have
Okay.
never been to a race. But I love NASCAR. I have since Richard Petty. What's that? In the 1980s.
Yeah.
And so I've followed. Yeah, I'm big time NASCAR, and so yes, I want to go to the NASCAR site and see the flag waving and the engines revving and all that crazy stuff. Otherwise, I'm going to be like, what's going on here? But for the
Right.
women who come to my site, I want them to immediately feel a sense of calm because I know what they're going through mentally and emotionally. And I want them to feel calm when they come to the site. And I want them to stay there for a little while and hang out. And like Kevin is always telling me, I need to add more content. I'm working on the content
Hmm.
to keep them there. And so that's
Right.
a good point to bring up.
Well, let's talk about this as far as developing that avatar. What are the steps that you did? I know I would say this. I think you do it. You find out who your avatar is a lot by who you can relate to because you're in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you how did you actually get to the point where you would, if I asked you, could you write it down? How would you be able to get to that point? What steps are you taking to kind of get to that so you identify that avatar, that perfect person?
I identify that person through me. And I know it may sound
Hmm.
selfish, and I am not, by any stretch of the imagination,
Right.
a selfish person. That's one of my deal breakers in relationships, is selfishness. I'm going to put that out there. But I had to do it through me. I had to understand what it was I was talking about. It
Hmm.
doesn't make sense to go up and talk to a group of people, no matter what it is you talk about, if you don't know what you're talking about. You can do all the research you want on it, but if you don't have a passion for it, it's going to come across. And I have a passion for the women who will never have children
Hmm.
because I'm a woman who will never have a child. I'm not even going to consider that womb transplant. So I'm never going to carry a
Sure.
child. That's the bottom line. I will never carry a child. And I
Okay.
want to talk to the woman who will never carry a child.
Well, then
And
then
of course,
let's.
there are women in my group who are still
Yeah.
going through infertility treatments. I'm not
Mhm.
trying to I just want to make sure I say
Sure.
that there are women who don't have children. They haven't had the child yet. And that's okay to be in the group because you've never had a child.
Yeah.
But, if you've had children, if you went through infertility and you've had the child, awesome. But my avatar is a person like me.
Sure.
You work your.
Okay. So, oh, go ahead, Leland. I knew you were going to ask a
I
question.
was just going to say her system is based simply on empathy. It's really how her entire program is structured.
Hmm.
It's she's an empath herself, and I know this because our granddaughter, the one I spoke of earlier, is very much an empath. Because when a little baby doll cries, she cries. When it laughs, she laughs. So it's similar to what Civillas is doing here with her group and her community. Is she makes that heartfelt and soul connection to the people that she is working with because she is empathetic to their cause and what it is they need, because she's been there and is going through that exact same thing herself. And I got a little frog in my throat there. So that's a very powerful thing to have. Very powerful.
Well, I wanted to. The reason why I asked that is because a lot of people do use that. Oh, they're able to relate as a way to identify their avatar. And I want to challenge you on this because early on you said, I would like to open a group up or start a group, a community that includes men that fits the similar characteristics, childless but not by choice.
Hmm.
How are you going to identify with a man in terms of, if you're using that, well, I fit this certain demographic, I'm this certain age, I'm a woman, and how are you going to do that now?
Well,
Let's make a transition over to including men in this. So let's talk
okay.
about that.
I agree with you, Jonathan. Thank you for calling me out on that. I appreciate it. And I would say that on one level, I understand. Although I'm not a man, I understand the basic level of wanting to have a child and never having had a child. I will tell you that I did one interview, and I hope to do more. David said that David would be my second interview.
Good.
I
Okay.
did one interview already with a man who actually lives in Denmark, and he's on Blab a lot. But I interviewed him because he wanted children, and I didn't know. I just asked him off the cuff. I said, "This is what I do." He's on Blab. I don't know if you guys know him, Donald. He does the oh my gosh, what do you call it? He has you come in and you pitch.
Oh
You
yeah,
pitch your
he had a blab on yesterday. I forget.
right. He's almost
White
daily.
white haired, white beard.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know
yeah.
who he is. Yeah.
So I went in to do my pitch. I said, "Hey, free advertisement. I'm there." So I went in one day a couple months ago, and I said, "I want to pitch," and I told him what I did. He was like, "Oh wow." And I said, "Have you ever had children?" Just off the cuff. And he said, "No." I said, "Did you want children?" He said, "Yes." I said,
Oh, cool.
"Will you allow me to interview you?"
That's awesome.
So he was my first interview.
Wow.
And you should hear the interview. I'm not trying to push you towards my podcast, but
Oh,
I would.
show the link. If we've got something for that show, we'll be happy to let them go see it. That's what we're all about here.
Yeah. The podcast you can find on iTunes, SoundCloud, any Android platform, anything. You can find the podcast. It's 21st Century Hannah, 3 separate words. And, when I interviewed him, it really opened my eyes to the fact that men, I'm going to sound really silly here, men have feelings.
Oh, I see it. I've got it here.
How dare you say
I
that?
do.
Civilla, we're done. Out. You're gone. Banned for life.
I see it. It's the
Men
third.
do not have feelings.
It's the third one down, right? If you guys want to just make a quick link to it, it's the third one down on this list of podcasts on her website that we just showed earlier.
The table, does it say the tables are turned?
Yeah, it says child is not by choice from a man's point of view.
Well, no, that one is
I'm sorry.
a blab that I did. The one with Donald it actually says something, and you may have to go.
Donald Brandt?
Yes, Donald Brandt.
Yeah, it's the last one then on that list.
Okay.
At the bottom.
And yeah, during the course of the interview, he tells me how he would see other men in the park playing catch with their kids.
Yeah, that's rough.
I'm like,
And I can empathize. I have lost touch with. Actually, I lost touch with 3 of my kids due to divorce. One, my youngest boy that I mentioned earlier, that went through the birth and near death of his mother. I have not seen in 6 years. So it's rough.
I'm gonna have to pray about that one because I believe that for the men who are not in touch with their kids, I really hope and pray that something happens that you can get back in contact with them because it's so important, that relationship. And I see it with my brother and my dad. I just see we're in our 40s and my brother, oh my gosh, he loves my dad. He's always telling us, oh, take it easy on him because, sometimes he can be grumpy.
Oh, yeah.
But that's another story. So it's like he loves, it's the relationship that I see between them. It's just an awesome relationship. And I see that relationship manifesting with my nephews and my brother. And so it's just an awesome thing to see. So for Donald to say that, sometimes I would see them, he said it's something he's learned to live with, but he sometimes would see them playing catch in the park and seeing them walking along or whatever. And it was tough. It was tough. And that interview opened my eyes. And I've done a blab. I don't know if you guys know Dr. Vibe. I've done a blab with Dr. Vibe. I'm coming around to answering your question, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
And in that blab, a man came in, and I would say he was probably in his 60s. And you could still hear the hurt in his voice because after 7 or 8 or 9 years of marriage, his wife couldn't have children. I don't know whose side the issue was on, but she left the marriage because she couldn't have kids. And I know several stories like that where the woman leaves because they're not able to have children. And so I know that men are hurting, and I will create the group. I will create the group for the men, and I will.
You're on record.
I will. I just need one to start.
Yeah,
I will do it, and then
you bring up a really good a good point in this, okay? Because what I want to challenge you to really do in order to be able to, I think, effectively reach who you want to reach out to. And I've done this for clients. I've done it for myself. I've done it in different businesses where you sit down and you say, okay, who is this person? And you make up this hypothetical person. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's easier to start with gender, age, food, circumstances. Yeah. It depends on the client, depends on where you're trying to get people to go to, right? I mean, I've worked with people that are kitchen people, They have a kitchen show, right?
I see what you're saying. You kind of threw me off there with the food thing.
Oh.
You like spaghetti?
Well,
in the group. That's all
right.
there's.
Do you like spaghetti? Are you a pasta person?
Yeah.
You're right. Or are you gluten intolerant?
Yeah.
Right. So we kind of go on. And I use those other examples because we've had some really deeply personal. And I'm not Italian, so I don't really consider pasta to be a super personal decision. Right. And that was a off the hand comment. I don't think all Italians feel that way. Yeah, no, it's not. Right. Now, having said that, there are decisions that are super personal.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you, how do you target? And again, I don't mean these to be aggressive terms. How do you identify people? Because oftentimes I'm going to say when you're in a hurt state, or when you're not out there looking for help. You're not out there scouring. I mean, it happens, but you tell me, because otherwise I'm going to challenge you. I would say otherwise your group probably, I think you have how many people, like 4 or 5 people in your group? You would add 3, 4, 5 zeros on the end of it. If people that were really hurting were absolutely going out there and looking for all the resources, your group would be absolutely huge, but they're not. Because it's a characteristic of people that are hurt.
Right.
They're hurt inside. So how do you reach out? And I think that, let me offer a couple of ideas, and this kind of might transition into to several other areas. You find something that they're commonly heard about. Now, I like to use Facebook as a means of, because of the data they collect. You can also use like Google Ads, AdWords and things like that. Right. Another one that some people don't really think about is actually you go into Twitter. It's almost like you're building essentially like an ad to, like, you were going to market to that person, but don't make a marketing. It's not a marketing effort. What you're trying to do is find out by using a big data set, like Facebook has, and kind of you're bringing it down. What are the interests are? And this might be where I would say, what you should do is that you should go into their, audience builder and start looking, okay, so, and start building it with you. But maybe there's other Facebook communities that are, that are already built around something similar to this niche, or larger websites, right? They have an interest. And you say NASCAR, right? We'll just use NASCAR because it's not so. It's a little bit easier to talk about, right? One way. Now, I've lived near Dover, Delaware. I've lived near Phoenix. Mm-hmm. I've lived near Loudon, Pennsylvania. And if you're NASCAR, all 3 of those cities have
tracks.
A really big circle, loud magic track, right? And so maybe that'd be where you might bring in demographics. I want to reach NASCAR fans. Well, I know in Loudon, I know this. You either love NASCAR or you hate it. And some people, that town blows up. I know it. I lived literally about 2 miles away from the track. I could hear the track. And the way it was circled, and I knew all the nuances of it, but I wasn't a fan. So you can kind of use some geographics. Maybe age is another way to do it. But I would tell you this: I think for what you're looking for with these more personal sites, look for other sites, look for other groups that are already formed, and find the things that those people like, and that will actually help you develop who your avatar is. Another industry that actually does this very well, is the insurance agency in the insurance industry. They do it a lot, and they do it to help you better identify your risks, whether it's a health risk or a driving risk. They do it to help identify those people that maybe that they need to develop wills and and be able to write. Life insurance is another one. They use all of those demographics, right? So I would just challenge you to start kind of going, oh, okay, I want to develop a group for men. Go through that exercise.
And
do it.
I'll just offer a couple of points also from someone who knows a little bit about SEO. I don't profess to be an SEO expert, but I call myself an SEO dude, you might say. One thing to focus on with regards to your website would be some long tail keywords that would be structured based on the questions that your demographic asks on a regular basis. Like, what can I do to have children? Why can I not have children? These types of questions are what are asked, and I'm going to recommend a site to you here before we're done, but I'm going to have to go get the link. There is a site that allows you to structure. It does all the who, what, where, when, how questions for you that are being answered online, and I'll bring that out in a bit. I think it's called answerthepublic.org or something like that, but I'll find that for you before you leave, Civilla. The other thing would be to touch on places. Negative keywords are things that people don't think about a lot, which are the opposite of what you think the people might be looking for. You know, people who can't have children are probably still reading baby magazines. They're probably reading psychology magazines. They're probably really struggling to find answers in any place they can find them. And for you to have a small ad somewhere in a baby magazine that is like, we know you're here wondering why you can't have a child. Maybe you need to talk to us. Come see what we have to offer. And that would be the kind of thing that would help build your community based off of a stem or a branch of someone else's community. Like Jonathan mentioned, having that Facebook community outside of your own niche that you may be able to find people in, for the fact that they don't know where to go. They have this desire and this lead on that says, I have to have a baby. I want to have a baby. And they're so entrenched in it that that's all they think about. That might be a place to look for those people who are suffering. So I really hope you find. I'm sure you're going to help.
What you described is actually part of something. Actually, what we talked about on Monday, which is developing a blue ocean strategy, right? Where instead of trying to compete with all the other people that are doing all the exact same things, you're looking for an untapped people group, interest, and by looking in. You know, these certain maybe type of like magazines or social things, right? And you put in that, hey, are you hurting for this reason? Or do you know somebody that's hurting for this reason? All of a sudden now you're tapping into something where they're not necessarily thinking in that regard, but you get them there. That's a blue ocean strategy. And so, so I was thinking, I was like, that's another great way of helping you grow your community. And you're actually meeting their needs where they're at, instead of, like you said, just trying to throw out an advertisement in like a newspaper in the local newspaper.
And even that works though. That does work too. Find the department's Craigslist is another huge draw for people who don't necessarily hang around in social media, but have questions or are looking for groups and people. Civilla, that link that I just posted is the Answer the Public link. I'm going to recommend that you at least take a look. And anyone here who is building a website or a service or a product, anything, to answer the public, to be able to find the answers and supply the answers to what your demographic or your niche is asking is a huge avenue to take when it comes to building a business and or to help others. It doesn't really matter what it is. So if you can answer those questions, that site's got a really goofy feel and look to it. The guy on there is a little bit of a goofball. He just stands there and like looks around. He's not really looking at you, but it's just the way he built the site. It's a little different. But if you type in your keyword, it structures what's similar to a mind map. Down below, you'll see all the questions that might be answered in that particular niche or that particular keyword. If you were to type "can't have a baby," it's going to say, what do I need to do because I can't have a baby? All those questions will pop up based on searches that have been generated on Google. So,
yeah, I'm totally mesmerized by his video.
Yeah, it's weird. But it's a great site. It really is. It's
very, very eclectic site.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got a bunch of.
This is excellent.
We got a bunch.
So yeah, let's kind of hop through some of these questions. Can we do that?
Ready, Civilla? These are probably all toward you. So, Jonathan, you go ahead and read. I'll just pop.
And you're required by the contract that you signed before coming on this morning. You have to answer all of these questions correct.
Absolutely. You want to read them?
Andy writes, do you guys have any advice on growing niche communities that are centered around a local business? Yes, I do. Civilla, do you have any pointers or things that you would suggest people do or ideas?
I appreciate all the ideas you have given me. There are a couple of things that are rolling around in my head right now. But to answer Andy's question, I would say if it's something that you're passionate about, stick to your guns, because there are going to be people who are going to tell you, maybe that's too niche. I've heard that a lot. Maybe you need to open it up more. But if it's something that you feel that you really need to be doing, that you're really passionate about, there's got to be a way to do it. And just like Jonathan and Leland just gave me some more tips for growing my groups, that's what goes around in my head daily. There's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. And so I would say if you're passionate about it, just stick to your guns, especially when it's super niche.
Good deal. Great answer.
Another thing that I would suggest as far as going with advertising to a local business, depending on what the topic is, you can use Google. No, not Google. You can use Craigslist. A lot of people do use it, but the only downside is, there's a lot of rules with it. It's very hard to track, and those kinds of things. But if you're just wanting community awareness, it's not a bad place to start. Another one is look for where in your community, where are people actually kind of hanging out? And it might be literally as simple as going to the local Y, going to the local community center. It might be a church or something like that. Where are people? And we're talking geographically, locally, right? Where do people go? And this is really important, where if you know your avatar, you know that customer, you're going to be able to answer some of that question. And I'm not going to get into this is not the same as saying the law of attraction, which some people are like, yay, and other people are like, are you kidding me? This doesn't work. That's not what we're talking about. This is going through the motions and knowing what your customer or what your avatar is doing. You want to know, it doesn't apply all the time. Not every single question needs to be asked. Like we were kind of using, like, I don't need to know what pasta you're going to choose in order to know what, in order to know what kind of NASCAR, product you're interested in. It's not the same thing. Now, it might be, what do you do on Saturdays? How do you spend your, are you a cable subscriber? That's going to connect with the NASCAR because they want to make sure they catch every single piece of NASCAR information. So you just got to know your customer well enough, or your avatar well enough, to be able to answer some of those really key. And it takes a long time. You might come up with 50 things and use 10 of them, but it's worth the effort because now also those other 50 things don't apply.
Right.
So, oh yes, yeah, I saw this question. Thanks for kind of posting it. What solutions?
Tamisha's question.
And Civilla, this is a question really just for you.
That's why I created the groups, because I want the women to be able to come in and find a place to chit chat. I know it sounds maybe shallow, but when you're with a group that understands what you're going through and you can talk, I've created as I tell people, the place and the space for women to come in and talk and just talk. I have 3 days a week where we can talk on specific subjects. And the rest of the time, if there's something that's just really bothering you, that you just can't seem to find anybody outside of the groups to talk to, family, then come into the group and let's talk. And then the newsletter that goes out every month is, again, another way to help comfort people, comfort women, and letting them know that there's actually a newsletter out there that's free that talks to what's going on with me. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'm creating courses for women to take, really short courses, and courses for them to just listen to and just read and realize, look, I'm not the only person going through this. There's somebody else dealing with this, and there's somebody else who knows the answers. And so I'm going to take you from point A, where you're feeling depressed and second class as a woman, because that's easy for us to do when we can't have the children, to getting to a point B where this is my life. I am still a family unit. I can still live my best life ever. That's the point I want to get women to, that are childless not by choice.
I just want to interject a slightly different comment here. And you guys know I'm not about numbers and things like this, right? I'm not about popularity. I had some people when they heard about this and they kind of knew, some people were kind of like, I'm not really going to be here today. I have a lot of people that message me, and they think it was kind of like, this is a really uncomfortable conversation. And especially on Fridays, and Fridays at 11 o'clock, we go up against Social Media Examiner, right? It's just the time slot, not like head to head. I'm not competing, and we're different. We're different kind of spheres, right? Mm-hmm. And Civilla, I want to encourage you and everybody else that's listening on the record that even though you might not feel that you're super popular or that everybody's really interested in this, I just checked. It was just a few minutes ago, but I've seen this happen, but this is the biggest I've ever seen it. Social Media Examiner had like 43 live viewers. Well, we had 43 live viewers. And then you see right now, even though people are coming in and out, and people feeling that like this is like a really maybe an awkward conversation or something that they don't feel really super comfortable with. I mean, I'm a father of 5. I know Leland's a father of 6. I love my kids. I desperately love my children. And in no way or shape or form does that detract from what you're doing and from, I feel, the mission that you're talking about or the subject that we're talking about here. Here's my point, right? We're going up against Social Media Examiner, Michael Stelzner, very big name. And you guys chose to be in this blab because of this lady right here and because of the mission she has. And if any one of you guys ever feel that you can't, no one's going to listen to you, I'm going to tell you you're wrong, because all you have to do is be on point, know who you're trying to talk to, and continue and be consistent. And Civilla, I'm looking at your website with your podcasts. You've got a website, you've got communities, you're doing it. And I can't give you enough props for it, but I wanted to show you and demonstrate in physical real time, you're actually doing it. You are making a difference and people are paying attention to what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated that.
And not only that, but when I came in, we were being, well, at least on my page, and I know that it's different for everybody from what I've witnessed in the past. You guys were the featured blab when I came in this morning. So just to let you know.
Awesome.
All right, we got one from Rhonda. Go ahead, Jonathan. Oh, you're muted. You're muted out.
I don't. Right, Civilla, and Rhonda's at your soul. So this is a really great question, Civilla. Have you contacted the local OBGYN offices and let them know what you do? She's worked for the last 12 years in offices, and we were one of the first ones with the boots on the ground for these issues.
I know, and I've been working on my OBGYN. I've been working on local hospitals. I don't know if some of you know that here in Central Florida, there's a Winnie Palmer. There's the women's hospitals. I mean, there are tons of hospitals here in Central Florida. And all I can tell you is I'm working on them. I mean, as with anything else in life, I think it's a lot of times it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I have mailed letters. I've gone into offices. It's tough, but because I'm passionate about what I'm doing, I'm going to continue to do until something gives. I will tell you, Rhonda, that when I had my hysterectomy, where did they put me? They put me in the maternity ward to recuperate. I mean, things that people just don't think about. People are not thinking. I'm not saying build a whole new wing for women who've had a hysterectomy, but
would have been rough.
Yeah, it was rough, and it was like, at least think about what it is that you're doing when you put all of these women together from every part of the spectrum. You're putting women who are like completely elated with women who have just lost their final chance of having a baby.
Oh, for sure. So, and the wounds have to heal. I mean, and I can only express that with the fact, Civilla, that my second wife had an open wound after her hysterectomy because she was a hypochondriac, or not, what's the word? Hypoglycemic, sorry.
Okay.
So that's a totally different thing.
Yeah, big difference. So she had issues with, sensitivity. Her blood was very thin and things like that. So we actually had to contend with an open wound that we had to pack for months.
Me too.
And it was that scar that was, a reminder day in and day out of having to go to that place and realize what had happened, that there will be no more children. So it was that in and out every day reminder that we had to contend with. And I can only imagine what it was like for you to go through a hysterectomy and then be put into, a labor ward like that.
And I had to
Have all
stay
them
extra
children
time.
around you screaming
Yeah,
and yelling.
I had to stay extra time because there were complications. Complications created not by me. So a whole nother story. But yeah, I had to do the packing of the wound and all that kind of stuff too. Home health people had to come for 2 weeks to do that. So you're going through things physically, emotionally, So yeah, I'm gonna stick to my ideal client.
All right, Jonathan. I thought we had another question. Did you just drop it off the side?
It wasn't a question.
Oh,
It was
okay.
just Rhonda was saying she's kind of geographically located near you.
Okay.
And I think that was kind of cool. I'm going to post this.
Rhonda, if you have any,
That's not me saying this. Just I didn't say this. This is Catherine, and I should have put the thing in there. I just put this up there so everybody could see it. And I'll read it. Catherine writes, you're an inspiration for me because I've been struggling to keep going with my message, and seeing you and hearing you gives me the encouragement to do one thing more.
Awesome.
And know that you are a community supporter. This is not the Civilla event. This is not the only person going through this, and you don't want to be a lightning rod for this issue. That's not how you come across. That's not what you're saying. Right. But you are building a community, and being a community leader oftentimes means that you need to be stronger than maybe you want to. It means you don't shrink away from some issues. Mm-hmm. You pick and choose. You choose where you want to go by leading by example. And I want to say thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much. You guys have been a
Leland,
encouragement to me today.
Good. That's wonderful. Leland, you just dropped in her website.
3 links. One
and
is her
Facebook
group.
links.
Yes, and one is her website. And the last contact is, I believe that's correct, Civilla at CivillaMorgan.com. That's my email. And the websites look very similar to one another. So if you go to childlessnotbychoice.net, it will look very similar to CivillaMorgan.com, but they are 2 different websites. So you could save either one of those to get in touch with Civilla.
Right, and the overall platform name is 21st Century Hannah. So if you want to search for the podcast, 21st Century Hannah. And thank you, Koligi321. I will be on the lookout.
That's Rhonda.
Rhonda.
Yeah, that's Rhonda.
That's Rhonda.
Thank you, Rhonda.
So what I wanted to do is I do want to close out the recorded portion of our show, not necessarily closing out the blab, but I try to keep our recorded sessions to about an hour. It helps them be a little bit more manageable for replays and things like that. And with that, I want to say thank you, one, to everybody that's joined us today, both people that are joining us as logged in members, as well as that are seeing us on different either platforms, or that they're seeing us logged in, they're watching us, but they're not logged in. And I want to say thank you guys for taking the time today and watching and spending however long it's been, at least an hour. Leland, I want to say thanks for hopping in today and sharing just even some of your personal, experiences, because I mean that's a little bit of what today is, and I want to say thank you for helping facilitate and getting her contact info up there. That helps.
Problem. And this is our group, just so for those that may have not seen at the very beginning. I didn't want to confuse people with the 2 different Facebook groups, but any blabbers who would like to participate in our all inclusive, I should say. It's not an exclusive group. It's for any blabbers that are out there that want to learn about blabbing, how to become part of a community, and how to build their business or social structure a little bit better out here on Blab. You can join us by requesting an invite at that link below. So thanks for everything. Thank you so much, Civilla. It was a great show. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jonathan.
So with that, I'm going to pause it. But before I do, guys, I have not posted all the links for our show on Monday, but we are going to have some shows on Monday. So make sure you follow me, or make sure I will be posting them also in our Facebook group. So until then, have a great day, and we will talk to you the next time.